Oh, you know what? My headphones.
Oh, yeah. They're connected on it.
All right. There we go. All right. All right. Can everybody hear me? Still kind of getting used to all of this. Okay, so I'm Richard. I'm from Sunshine Renewable Energy. Here today, kind of go over some heat pump typical questions, kind of low-level basic stuff to kind of give you an idea of what heat pumps are and what they can offer, costs associated and things like that. First, start off with mini split heat pumps. These are like the number one thing that we sell, and we sell like 2,000 of these a year right now. They're awesome. The applications that you're typically looking at these for is especially if you have electric baseboard or a hot water baseboard. This is kind of like that retrofit, easy way to cover a main floor, basement. You can put them in bedrooms, but there are some other solutions when it comes to doing like a second story of a house. We'll go over after that in a minute. So essentially, a heat pump it doesn't actually create heat, right? They don't actually use a lot of energy, because what they're actually doing is they're transferring energy from one place to another efficiently and effectively using a compressor and refrigerant. Refrigerant has a low boiling point. It's easy for it to heat up and boil and then send into the indoor unit. Then inside this indoor unit, you have a coil. It's essentially just like this. This is your coil surface. Your fan is in behind here. The refrigerant heats up this coil, and then your fan blows through that coil, and it delivers the heating. And then in the summertime, it does the exact opposite and gives you air conditioning. So what it's doing is it's actually taking that heat from inside the house, and then moves it outside efficiently and effectively. And the air conditioning costs pennies a day with these things. Also, a byproduct of that air conditioning is dehumidification. So while it is the air conditioning, it will help take the moisture out of the air and dehumidify it. They can move quite a bit of moisture, especially on a hot, humid day. Especially if you go out and see it, look at the drain line outside. Our number one seller here is the Fujitsu. This is a 12,000 BTU. We also do the LG as far as mini splits goes. There's kind of and then also more recently we've kind of been selling quite a few of these lately. These are mini split as well. Same identical kind of thing as this. Except for that is great for people that really don't like the look of these up on the wall. We have been selling a lot of those in the last couple of years because that is the number one thing that I get is I hate the look of them. They don't look good. But most people I find over time, once you have it in there and you have the air conditioning and the heating's really nice, it kind of, it's worth it, right? Another thing, as far as questions people really ask is like operating costs. So operating costs versus electric baseboard, these are definitely something to seriously consider, because they will literally pay for themselves in a relatively short period of time if you're not over buying equipment and things like that. You got to set the expectations, but they really cost like a third almost to run than what an electric baseboard is. And if you think about your electricity bill, 70% of your electricity bill is pretty much attributed to heat, unless you have a hot tub or something like that. So if you can cut a third of that 70% or 2/3 of that 70%, I mean, you can be talking significant dollars. I've seen electric baseboard homes that have saved, a few grand a year just by adding like 2 heat pumps. It's some of those, the bigger the house, the more open it is, the more effective the heat pump is going to be. So that is leading to that. These are designed for an open space. If you have like a really choppy area, for example, bedrooms on a second story floor where you have it's bedroom, and a bathroom. They're not really good for that kind of scenario. It'll be a good air conditioner for your bedroom, but really as far as from a heating or an efficiency perspective, it's not really the greatest idea. When it comes up to upstairs, second story in a house, the thing that we like really push a lot now are these attic ducted systems. They are a little bit more expensive, yes, but if you put one of those heads in your like master bedroom for, let's say, and you've got 4 bedrooms, you're spending a lot of money really only to get a bedroom, because that's not going to come out the door, turn the corner, go through the next door into the next bedroom, and so on and so forth. They just don't work that way. So this is kind of like that simple solution that covers all the rooms. So essentially what you have is it's the same kind of thing, mini split heat pump, but a little bit different form. Up in the attic, we build a supply, plenum off of it. You have your leads. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 leads there, and then a return that would be somewhere in the hallway, and then it comes out through your vents here, right? So that way you can have multiple rooms with vents in them. You can shut the bedroom doors at night. It's super quiet, because if this is in your room, when it's in your living room or like in your basement, you don't really notice it because you're moving and you're around and you're up and down and all that kind of stuff. But when it's nighttime and it's bedtime, and there's not, you can hear a pin drop, you are going to somewhat hear this machine much more so than what, for example, this would be, because this is separated between you and the insulation and the ceiling above and all that kind of stuff. And then also you're not getting a huge velocity of air coming out of one space. It's being diverted out over multiple rooms. So you get, it's a far superior thing. It adds about $3,000, but if you're looking at $4,000 for a heat pump, and then you add the $3,000, but you're getting 4 bedrooms, the math really does make sense at that point, because you're actually getting the most bang for your buck, essentially. And then electrical, get a lot of electrical questions. If you're on oil right now, most of the time, I would say 90 to 95% of the time, you're on 100 amps. So you have enough power to keep the oil as the primary heat source, because every heat pump needs a primary heat source. They can't be the primary. There's a couple of reasons behind it. I'll explain that in a second. But if you have the oil as your primary, and you're keeping the oil as your primary, and you're using a heat pump, and you're adding a heat pump, generally you're good enough with 100 amps. We might not have enough space in the actual physical panel and have to put like a pony panel off to the side to make the circuit space, but you would have enough load in most circumstances if you don't have a hot tub, if you don't have a pool that you heat, something like that. And then otherwise, if you're coming off of oil and you have 100 amps, now we're talking most likely a 200 amp service upgrade. A 200 amp service upgrade is a pretty big investment. We have to bring the house up to current electrical code. So depending on how old the house is, that price can change and be variable. But usually looking in the ballpark of around $4,000 to do a service upgrade, depending on what has to be done and what it might already exist. If you've had a kitchen renovation recently or something like that, that can sometimes chop a little bit off. But yeah, the 200 amp service upgrade is definitely there if you're coming off of oil. If you're already off of oil and you're on electric heat, most likely you'll have a 200 amp service. And the 200 amp service from coming off of oil has to happen because, again, that primary, if we take the oil away, we have to replace that with a primary heat. 99% of the time for us, that heat replacement is electric. If it's hot water baseboard, we replace the hot water baseboards with electric baseboards. Or you could do it with an electric boiler. We prefer the electric baseboards. They're smaller, they're easier to move. The costs really aren't that different. You have way more control over electric baseboards than you do over hot water baseboards, because every electric baseboard is technically its own zone. They all have their own thermostat, so you can really, work the system if you're really trying to get into the nitty gritty to save whatever money you can. So that's kind of like a conversion from oil. So another heat pump as well. It's not as prevalent in Nova Scotia, but is like a ducted heat pump, right? So this would be as if you already have the existing ductwork in your home, and you have a forced air furnace. There's two ways that it can be applied. One would be if you're keeping the furnace and still keeping the 100 amps, we can still add a heat pump into the existing furnace. It's essentially a big coil like this that goes inside the furnace, and then the heat pump does the heating and the cooling for the house, and then the oil is there for the backup. And again, the backup is a big thing with heat pumps. With baseboards, they rarely, if ever, fail. They're diversified throughout the house anyways. Oil, if your furnace breaks down or your hot water boiler breaks down, traditionally, the guy that comes out to fix it, or the person that comes out to fix it, is going to have the part to fix that unit right on the truck. And if they don't, it's only 15 minutes away and they can come back. Totally different with a heat pump. Totally different. This thing breaks down, or that thing breaks down, or any heat pump breaks down for that matter. We have to come out and find out what the problem is. Then we have to go back and order the part. Then we have to reschedule to come out and fix the part. So there is an extra step in that process. In that process, you can be down for days, right? So if that happens at the coldest time of the year, you need that primary heat source, right? Although a heat pump can do 100% of the heating for the winter, in most cases, most of the time nowadays, they're just so good. If that breaks down, it's not a today fix, right? It's not even a today or tomorrow fix. And sometimes it can be, with us, I mean, we have our typical service throughout the year that's kind of like day to day, and we kind of build for that. And we see, but you get these massive peaks all of a sudden when you have like the first cold snap of the year or the first hot heat wave of the year. Your service jumps, it could jump 150, 250% over a 48-hour period. There's just not enough people to get out there and bang, 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 bang. We get you in priority sequence if you've got no heat, et cetera, et cetera. We work it that way. If it's like a little noise or something like that, you're kind of closer to the back of the list, because as long as you're still running, you got heat, you're good. And so on. And same with air conditioning. The reverse happens in the summertime. It just, it can spike and drop off. So you have to always plan to have that primary heat, because you do not want to be without, and your insurance company will not be happy if you are without. So a couple of other things just quickly. We do offer, like all electrical services, generators, electric car chargers. They're going to be huge down the road. Most of the time, if you have oil heat and you want a heat pump, you have a heat pump or you have an electric car. Otherwise, you're getting a 200 amp service upgrade, because both of those combined will not fit in 100 amps with your dryer, your stove, your hot water. All of those things are getting, up there in the 100 amp panel, especially once you put either the heat pump or the electric car charger. Typically, you're not going to get both. So something to think about definitely for that down the road. Another heating source that we use a lot, and again, it's going to be bigger and bigger down the road, I think, as you see, is an ETS, electric thermal storage. Now, this typically runs really, really good with the mini split heat pumps, right? It can also work with a ducted heat pump as well, because often the basement is cold with a ducted system. There's usually a temperature differential from the main floor, top floor, to the basement. Sometimes it could be 7 to 10 degrees even. So it's good for makeup heat for that. But the big one here is the mini split. So like every time, the mini split is always going to be more efficient than the ducted system. This is the most efficient way to heat your home, especially if you have the right layout for it. So what we do is, because these are like 300 or 400% efficient, they're already, annihilating in the efficiency standpoint. But what happens is when you combine that with the ETS, and we do a lot of these in like the basements, sometimes we'll do it in a bedroom or something like that, just to get you on the time of day meter. But what happens is the time of day meter is Monday to Friday from 11 p.m. until 7 a.m. Friday from 11 p.m. until Monday morning at 7 a.m. So all your weekends, and then all your national and provincial holidays, they charge you half price electricity for the whole house. The idea of the ETS is that's a bank of bricks. It gets hot at night. It takes all of its energy at night and then gives it off throughout the day. So effectively, that is a 2-to-1 ratio. You're buying it at half price. You're letting it out at full price. This also runs on the time of day meter because everything that's going on in your house during those times is being charged at that rate. So if you can imagine this is 300 or 400% efficient, when it's running on half price electricity, you're actually getting 600 or 800% efficiency for a pretty significant. I think it's like 180 days a year of half price electricity. I mean, you can really lick it, especially if you already heat with electric right now. We've seen people literally cut their whole electricity bills in half because the other thing that we do is we also, in that scenario, for example, you have electric hot water. What we'll do is we'll put a timer on the hot water tank, so your hot water tank charges at night, and then it's on all weekend long, and then effectively makes your hot water half price. The other things that you can do are laundry at night, or laundry on the weekends, and run your dishwasher overnight. All dishwashers and most laundry machines nowadays, if not all of them, they have a 2, 4, or 6 hour delay. Those delays are specifically for the time of day meter. It's just not so many people are aware of it. It's like, why is there a delay on this? Well, it is for the time of day meter, so that you're using that off-peak energy. You'll see that really coming down the road in the next 4 or 5 years, I think, like seriously. And then again, that time of day meter can really tie back to the electric car. So you drive around all day, you do your work, you do your work, right? You come home, you plug in your car, and then your car doesn't start charging until after 11 o'clock at night, and then you're paying 50 cents on the dollar for your charge for your car. Anyway, so that's just kind of like a little nitbit. So next thing we get into compressors. So the compressors are the pieces that drive the evaporators, right? So you've got your air handler for your ducted, you got your mini split heat pump, and so on and so forth, your attic ducted system. They are all driven by these compressors over here. So the mini splits, these are kind of like the mini split size of heat pumps. You'll see them. They do get bigger if you're getting multi-zones. So one compressor with multiple heads off of it. And then you have your ducted systems. Now this is a traditional ducted system that has been around for eons, 40, 50 years. They're huge, right? They also can be noisy, believe it or not. Most of the times it can be fixed, but still they're pretty noisy. Comparable to what is going to be the future in heat pumps is these type of heat pumps. Now, the Fujitsu is the one that we do. We also do an LG very similar to this. But you're going to see at some point all heat pumps are going to go this way. These are inverter. They're getting more into the technology of the mini splits, which are the benchmark really. So these are getting better and better and better, and they're going colder and colder and colder, and they're putting out more heat at colder temperatures, and they're still continuously putting out efficient heat. They get better and better and better. I mean, as the technology grows and grows. But these are super quiet, really, really nice machines. They're just on the market. And the really cool thing about this for a ducted system anyways, is that this comes with a 12-year parts, 10-year labor warranty, just like any other Fujitsu mini split. From a ducted perspective, it's unheard of. Nobody has that warranty in the industry that I'm aware of, and I don't foresee that happening anytime soon because it's been 10 years since I've been doing this and still haven't seen. This is the first time I've seen it. It's pretty awesome. They are a little bit more expensive than your kind of traditional. Probably looking at about $1,800 to $2,000, but you are getting creme de la creme of the machines here. So a little bit about choice. So when you're looking at heat pumps, it's huge deal. There are so many different brands, models, makes. It's crazy nowadays. Everybody's making a heat pump. I could actually have a heat pump with this beautiful face on it if I was able to commit to a container load. It would look like this. All right, this is the kind of heat pump that I could get my face plastered on if I wanted to buy a bunch of them. They are, we'll just leave it at that. You can kind of see the wires. These are both used machines, right? They're both about the same age. This one just falling apart. And this one's still looking beautiful, all boxed in, all the wiring is done. You can see there's just a lot more to this than this. This is just kind of basic. It's going to last you 5 to 10 years if you can even get parts for it at 10 years, which, you know, like that's, we rip half a dozen of these out a week nowadays that are under 7 years old, all of them, some of them under 3. It's tragic, really. But anyways, just kind of a, you know, really be careful. The big things, like we are Fujitsu, you know, like there's our #1 seller. We also sell quite a bit of LG, York on the ducted, especially the add-on side. But, you know, Fujitsu, awesome. Mitsubishi, Daikin, the Japanese, the 3 Japanese brands, all really good heat pumps. And then LG, a Korean, it's also very good. There's not much else that I would really deeply consider. But if you ever come to us for work, we're going to push either Fujitsu or LG. I don't sell any of the other ones. So yeah, and on your outdoor unit, no matter it be ducted or mini split or whatever, all are going to have an outdoor disconnect, right? All of them are going to have refrigerant lines that are going to have to go from the outdoor unit to the indoor, or multiples for that matter, depending on what you're going with. They do have to obviously go in a channel. They can sometimes go inside walls, but you know, often we're going on the outside. That way, if we ever have to service it down the road, things like that, it just makes it much easier for us to get to and find out what the problem is for that matter. So what else was there? So all of these things can be, there are rebates available through Efficiency Nova Scotia. It depends on what you're going for. For the mini splits, typically you're looking at $200 for every 12,000 BTUs. With the ducted systems, double is $400 for every 12,000 BTUs. The rebates are not huge, right? You're buying the heat pumps really because, one, it's a pretty good idea for most circumstances. It's a good investment, looks good in your house, or as far as like after you go to sell your house. I mean, there's just so many reasons. Financing is available. We have Nova Scotia Power, which is kind of like our easiest financing. They do 3 to 10 years at 7%. It's just a 1 page, fill your name, your account number, and bang, bang, there you go. The one that we've been pushing a lot of people to lately, though, is Credit Union Atlantic. Now, Credit Union Atlantic have a green financing. So if you are actually financing something that is going to be making your house more efficient, and this could be insulation, this could be solar, and also obviously includes heat pumps, even getting off of oil and things like that. They do a 10-year at 4.49, which is really, really good. I mean, there's nothing out there that I've found ever since I started the business that even touches that, except for a line of credit or a refinance on your mortgage. But that is the lowest. They do want a little bit more out of you, but really it's no more difficult than applying for a credit card or something like that, really. Yeah, so those are kinds of like the basics of what I have. I'm going to pick up my phone now and try to answer questions. So if anybody has any questions, you can throw them up on here. What's the price difference between the unit and the attic, please? Okay, so the ducted unit in the attic here, so right there, those are, they start, I think, $7,200 would get you 3 bedrooms, and 7,100 gets you 3 bedrooms, 7,500 gets you 4 bedrooms. When you go a little bit bigger, that'll cover up to about 1,000 square feet of total space. So depending on the floor, we might have to go a little bit bigger, but they don't really go up in huge amounts once you get into the system. The mini splits, you're typically counting on somewhere around $3,500 to $4,500 per unit if you're doing single zones. It's another thing, actually. So there are 2 ways that you can buy these mini split heat pumps. One is the single zone heat pump. All right, so that is 1 indoor unit and 1 outdoor unit. So that's a single zone heat pump. That is like almost 100% of the way to go, almost 100% of the time, especially on the main floor of your house. So the main floor of your house is the meat and potatoes. It's everything, right? On the main floor of your house, especially if you're in a 2-bedroom or sort of 2-story house, right? Because that's where all of your big windows are. That's where all your exposed walls are. That's where your ceiling in your attic is. So that's where all your heat loss, most of that heat loss occurs from that floor and above, right? Above for a 2-story house. This thing, when it heats that whole floor, it's just doing so good. If it's 2-story, often that main floor one also goes up because the heat wants to rise. You usually have an open staircase somewhere, and it just kind of flows up. It's not as good from the basement because you usually got a really tight staircase that goes from the basement up, unless it's like a split entry, of course. But the single zones, split entry, you're hitting 2 floors with 2 heat pumps. Get 2 heat pumps, not a multi-zone. Get 2 heat pumps. If you are doing a 2-story house and you're trying to really keep that budget down, number 1 on the main floor, single zone main floor, right? Number 2, if you're going to do a second one, basement is actually the best to go for as far as an efficiency, return on investment, savings standpoint. But if you're trying to whack 3 floors, I know the money gets up there, right? That where I would say, if you're going to combine any, you combine the basement and the top floor on 1 compressor. But really, when the dust all settles, you're saving $800 to $1,000, and 3 machines is better than 2 machines. And anyways, the difference between this and any multi-zone on the market, and this is pretty much for every single brand out there, is that this is going to be 30%, if not more, efficient than if you try and divide that on 1 compressor. So depending on the square footage of your house, I mean, geez, you could be talking $300 to $1,000 a year, depending on the size of the house. I mean, 30% is 30%. You take that 70% of your energy bill, or you take that oil portion, you add that up, and you do the math, and really, for the difference up front, the savings in the long run. The other thing as well that people don't really consider is that diversification of your investment. One, often you can piecemeal this together. You don't have to go a full hog all at once. The one on the main floor, always number 1. The other thing is that, like, let's say you've got them all on 1 compressor, right? And in 12 or 13 years, God forbid, something goes, you can't find a part for one of those, just 1 part, that's the whole thing gone, right? It's the whole thing. If they're on different compressors, right, and then depending on how long you're going to live in the house for, now you're only fixing 1/3 of the unit, right? You're only replacing 1/3. This one and that one and that one, they might last another 5 or 10 years. You never know. So you really, there's a lot of things to really consider when you're making those big investments. Let me see if I got some more questions here. The heat pump ETS combination is awesome. Honestly, for for what it is, depending if it's a big house, we can, sometimes have to kind of change things. But literally, this on the main floor and ETS in your basement, they're, in my opinion, no better combination that you can put together for the low cost versus high return. Because you're not only tackling heating when you're putting that heat, like when you're putting the heat pump in, it's a heating solution, right? That's all it is, heating, and then you get the bonus of air conditioning. You never need air conditioning in the basement, but that ETS, now that's a whole home energy solution. So that is an attack on its own. It will also benefit the heat pump. It will also benefit your hot water. It will also benefit your laundry. It'll also benefit your dishwashing. 5 years down the road, it'll also benefit your electric car. If you ever put solar on your roof, it's also going to benefit your solar, because when the sun is out and you're creating that solar power, that's when energy is expensive, right? And then you're trying to pull it back when energy is cheap, right? So you create on the peak and you pull on the demand, on the low demand, right? So it's really kind of I'm a really big fan. It's not as sexy as a heat pump, right? That's what the problem is, really. Let's get into. I've lost all my questions. So let's just try this. So sizing for heat pumps. All right, quickly. So depending on the brand, if you're buying a good brand, 9,000 BTU is somewhere from 600 to 800 square feet. 12,000 BTU is 800 to 1,000. 15,000 BTU is 1,000 to, let's say, 1,300 roughly. Once you get above that size of space, now you're getting into big territory. All right, I always say you're almost better. Because your spread is so far, and these can only go so far, is to probably look at adding a second heat pump on that floor somewhere else. But yeah, that's kind of the general rule of thumb. So there is possible to have one compressor and multiple heads, right? But as I said earlier, it's not my go-to, especially for the main floor, right? That main floor is, it's the core of the house. So I always recommend that for the main floor, at least, you always want a single zone. And if you're in a split entry or a raised bungalow, typically you're getting the whole place with 2 heat pumps anyways. Just buy 2 heat pumps. Don't buy one and split it up. You're gonna end up costing yourself in the end. They break down more. They're not as efficient. They don't put out as much heat at colder temperatures. It's more problematic. It's just they're noisier. There are a million things. The attic ducted system is super easy to maintain. All right, just like any heat pump, always recommend that you should have it serviced. The attic ducted system, I definitely say we should come out every year and look at it. The mini splits, you can get away with every 2 years, but you really do have to. I'll show you that in a second. I forgot to do that, but I don't know if you can see me here. So right here is your return. All right, that's your return grill. That's going to go on every attic ducted system. Unfortunately, the ceilings are too high here for me. But there's 2 little tabs there on the left and right side, and then that trace, it literally swings down, and right inside there's a filter. You just pull out the filter, you slide in the filter, you close it back up, you're done. That's all you do, right? You don't do anything else. We do everything else, all right? But the big thing that we want to come out and look at every year is, 1, that there's no gumming up on the coil inside there. 2, we definitely always want to make sure that our drain, if you can see the white pipe that's underneath, that's what we use. We use a 1-inch hard drawn drain that runs down. This one, in fact, this drain actually goes like 60 feet to the back where our kitchen is. So, I mean, it can go as long as you need it, as long as you can get the right grade. Big thing is, again, make sure that's properly installed, because install is huge. Doesn't matter whether you're looking at the attic ducted or the mini split. It's all huge. 50% of the purchase is the machine. The other 50% is who you choose to install it, because it's there's a lot of cuckoos out there for sure nowadays. So, any other questions? So, yeah, I mean, if you're putting one in the basement and you're not really using the basement all the time, yeah, I mean, you can turn it down. I don't typically recommend big swings with heat pumps. It's different than a furnace or a baseboard or something, because if your furnace comes on and you feel that air coming out, it's really, really warm, right? Like, oh man, that's really warm. If you touch a baseboard, it's hot. If you turn this up to 30 degrees right now and you put your hand in front of here, it'd just be warm. It's just a little bit warm. So it doesn't actually produce a wicked amount of heat all at once like a baseboard or a furnace would be. It produces a little bit of heat, but it just keeps on producing and producing and producing and producing and producing. And then that leads you into why you wouldn't do these big swings. It could take a long time on a really cold day to build that heat back up again. If you're using a furnace, it could actually do the wrong and turn the backup heat on, which is actually negating the benefit of the heat pump. But the other thing as well is that these are the new compressors that nowadays for these new ducted systems, and for years for the mini splits, the compressor is an inverter, so it's scalable, right? Compressors years and years ago, 100% on, 100% off, right? So it's kind of like that analogy with a car in the city versus the highway. When they put the inverter into the compressor, they gave the compressor gears essentially. So it's imagining yourself out on the highway in a modern car, sitting, going 120 kilometers an hour, but you're still only doing like 18 or 1900 RPMs. I remember my first car, when I was doing 120 kilometers an hour, man, the engine sounded like it was going to spin out of the thing. Because there's 4 gears, right? So when you're getting that, it's not like that anymore. It gets down, 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 and then finds that kind of sweet spot, and then just kind of plugs along and just kind of maintains that heat in the room, right? That's why they get that's why these have always, for years, have been just so much more. These are catching up now, the ducted systems. But again, inside here, for maintenance purposes, is your filters. They're easy, right? You just take them out, you rinse them off in the sink, you dry them off, you slide them back in. Every house is different. That could be every 30 days. It could be every 60 days. It could be every 90 days. It depends on if you have pets, if you have 1 pet or 8 pets or 15 pets like I've seen before. Or if you smoke or whatever, all these things are going to be direct contributors to how often you're going to have to clean the filter. But you do have to clean the filter. Every winter, me personally, I end up going out to all the complaints that, like my heat pumps, and we know it's not, you open this thing and, right? There's just no air getting through it, right? So there's no air getting through it. It's not going to work, and you're not going to get your savings. It's going to ruin your machine. You're going to clog up your fan motor with dust, and you're going to have more repairs because of it. So anyways. So kilowatt annually for a mini split is really, really hard. I get that question all the time. It's really, really difficult because it varies winter to winter because the temperature changes the amount of kilowatts that it's using. Your insulation factor in your house, the temperature that you're going to keep your house at. Some people keep their house at, I go into houses and, I'm like, I need a coat, right? And they're wearing toque and they have blankets and everything like that. Or I go into some houses and it's like, whoof, man, what are you doing on in here? And it's 30 degrees. It's totally different variables, right? But, you know, on the average, I would say ballpark. And this is ballpark because it's, you know, a cold winter could be more. You know, if you put the heat up, it could be more. If you turn it down, it could be less. But a 12,000 BTU mini split heat pump, a good one, is going to run you somewhere between $600 and $900 a year, right? Oh. No, I'm still live here, am I? Can you just let me know because I can't. I can't tell. All right, yeah. So I think I've lost. Okay, I am here. Okay, so my screen just went blank on me. How long does an installation take? So installing a heat pump is really not that difficult. It depends on where we're going, though, mind you. If it's kind of a straightforward, heads here, compressor's going to be outside somewhere here. I mean, 2 hours, 3 hours. Now, for the heat pump side of things, that can also change a little bit because of the electrical. Because if the electrical is over on this side of the house, and I got to get it over to this side of the house, it can take a little bit longer. But you still. Electrical, you can get done, you know, typically 2 to 3 hours. Sometimes it's 20 minutes. It's just bang, pop outside. But yeah, and then if we're like piping it like down around a corner or something like that. The other thing is like you can put these things pretty much anywhere. Most of the time, we recommend to people to have this on an outside wall because again, when it's air conditioning and that coil is cool. All that moisture is going to be grabbing onto that coil and it's going to be dumping into a tray and that tray then goes into a drain. And if we can get it going right outside and down, no problem, right? It's going straight outside and down. If you want that on an inside wall, changing the water on the beans. So if I have to come up and over and come back down inside a wall with my drain to come to an inside wall, which is what you have to do, I have to put a pump in this right here. So this is a condensate pump. So essentially what happens is if I have to take my drain up and not go straight down, that condensate pump goes in, right? It's great for if there's no other way. But this thing, it will go, it's like a fish, like a fish tank pump, right? Basically what happens is this fills up, and they go whack, and it pumps it out. Not crazy loud, but still, it's sporadic, right? So it kind of just happens all of a sudden. You're like, oh, what's that? Anyways, and then these are like more of a bigger one. We actually use these most of the time for ducted units because you'll have your drain down on the floor, but that's in a mechanical room, so you don't ever hear that. But if that's in a room where you're trying to have silence, yeah, I don't know if I would be okay with that, but there's all kinds of things that we can do for a solution and look at all kinds of different things. We definitely install pony panels, so anything electric, right? Like if you need anything electric in your house, we can do it. Pony panels. Another one that we do a lot of in the last 2 years is generator panels. So there's two ways. I get a lot of questions about this. Generators, right? What's that? Automatic standby generator, right? These are crazy money, right? It's great, right? I love it. It'll power your entire house, and power goes down, boom, power comes back on, and your whole house is up and running. But really, when the dust settles, this is all of $16,000. By the time all the dust settles, you buy the machine, you install the machine. We get Nova Scotia Power out to cut the lines, to actually put the automatic transfer switch in, right? Which that's where you get that bang bang. And then propane. I mean, you can be looking at $2,500 to hook up just for the propane side of things. So it's very, very expensive, but man, awesome. So you control it from your phone, really wicked. But this one is the one. This is what I did in my house. So this is a generator panel. All right. So essentially, what this is similar to this in a way, but you run this yourself. Okay. So basically, when your power goes out, you press this on. What that does is that lights up this panel to a plug that we put outside, and you just plug your gas generator and bang, you pull your generator, and that'll juice that panel. The reason they have to do this, and it's totally separate from from even a pony panel, is because when they put this generator panel in, what they're doing is they're isolating this panel, which will run your stove, your fridge, your deep freeze, your internet, TV, kitchen plug, bathroom light, hallway light, bedroom light, like your basics, your general basics. You can sometimes, depending on the size, if it's 60 amps, you can throw a mini split heat pump in there or something like that. If you have oil furnace, I mean, geez, perfect spot for that, or a boiler. But really what you're doing is you're isolating it from the panel, right? So when you're juicing your house from here, you're not putting Nova Scotia Power employees and line crews at risk by sending that electricity back to the grid. So if somebody's out working on the transformer on your house, this makes it so that you can't kill them, basically. But really, really cool. We do a lot of them. 30 amp panel, you're usually looking at about $1,500 with permits and everything. A 60 amp panel, you're adding about $500 to go there. A 30 amp panel, you're looking, I think, about a 5,000 or a 6,000 watt generator. And then a 60, you're looking at around a 9,000 watt generator. The one I have was from Costco. Had it for 8 years. It's been through like hell. So they are pretty durable. But really, I mean, at the end of the day, we had no power last year in Dorian for 5 days on my street. And all the neighbors came over for toast and coffee and stuff like that because we had our generator going. It's noisy. This one here is super quiet, right? Like you can see the insulation here, and it's propane, so it's not running as dirty as what a gas generator does. But yeah, the neighbors got coffee, so they had to put up with the noise. So solar system and heat pumps. So yeah, I mean, that's not a problem. We do that as well. All right. So basically, for every 5 kilowatt system, 10 kilowatt is the best value that you can get right now, because that's where the rebates go up to 60 cents a watt up to 10 kilowatts, so up to $6,000. So 10 kilowatt is where you want to be. There's very few houses around that I know of that can stay under 2,000 kilowatts a year if you're heating with heat pumps. If you're doing everything right, you're still probably not going to get under $2,000 a year of electricity, and that's roughly about $1,000 for every 1,000 to 1,100 for every 5 kilowatts. Is where you're realistically going to get. You could get a year where you get 1,300 for a 5 kilowatt, but you could get a year where you get 900 as well. So it depends on the sun and if it's a cloudy, lots of rain that year, it can degrade anywhere between 10 and 20% year over year. If we're doing, we're booking about 3 weeks out for installs right now. It's typically, pretty much any time of year except for like the very beginning of the summer will be anywhere between 2 and 3 weeks. When you get into the deep of the summer, we might get up to, 4 or even 6 weeks because it can get kind of nuts at that time of the year. So mini split longevity. That's a good one. So for the Fujitsu, they come with a 12-year full parts warranty regardless, right? They also throw 10 years in on the labor. So the way that warranty works is the first year, you pay nothing. Years 2 to 10, if I have to come out for a repair, There's a $149 deductible, but that's it. It's all you pay. A little bit different from the LG. They come with a 10-year parts warranty. They don't include any of the labor. We do the 1-year workmanship guarantee, but years 2 to 10, you're paying for the labor. Minimum labor charge really for pretty much any service call on a heat pump is going to be about $250. That's minimum, because we have to come out and diagnose. That's $150, and then we have to come back with the part and fix it. Right? That's another 100. So your minimum typical charge is going to be $250 here from years 2 to 10, and capped at $150 here. Right? Then you get the extra 2 years on all the parts on the Fujitsu. But really 15 is I would say a low number. 20 years, if you're taking care of it and getting it cleaned and making sure the filters are clean, and if a squeak comes up or a creak, the great thing about the Fujitsu is that a squeak or a creak costs you $150. Squeak or a creak over there could cost you $400 or $500. I can't tell you until we actually come out and find what the problem is. So it's kind of like you're rolling the dice. That's why I love the Fujitsu so much. We're going to have a great relationship if you buy Fujitsu, right? Not only do I sell like 2,000 of these a year, they love me too. So if we have a problem, they have a problem. And I will go after them if we have a problem, just like you'll come after me if we have a problem. So, I mean, it's a really great, they do, but LG backs it up too. But this one, I just know, like we're going to have a great relationship. Done. Right? That's why I push those so hard. We do an hour from the city, so I think you are within our area. Annual maintenance, so cleaning of a heat pump. Mini split, $149 for the first, $79 for each additional after that. A ducted system, you're looking at one of these. You're looking at, I think it's $249. But we also leave you. We change one filter and we leave you 3 more to change throughout the year. The attic ducted system is, I think it's $220, and the exact same thing. We change one filter and leave you 3 more to change out through the. Those you want to change the filters every quarter, right? That's just straight up. You just change them every quarter. Different from your furnace again. And the same with the mini splits for that matter. These. Because back to that, if they don't put out a lot of heat all at once, they put it out slow and it's like a slow burn, right? But in order to do so, they have to move incredible volumes of air, right? 50 times, 100 times more air will flow through your system with a heat pump than they would with a furnace. Some really good benefits out of that though. One, your furnace is like this for temperature. Hot, it's cold, it's hot, it's cold. Whereas a heat pump, very much more consistent. It's blowing almost all the time. So you're not getting this kind of like, when your furnace starts to and it gets going and then it just shuts off and dead. Heat pump is almost like, it's all the time. So it's more of a white noise. It's very consistent. You're going to get a much more consistent temperature. You're going to get a much more comfortable temperature because it's a pressurized heat versus a radiant heat. So it's building up a pressure. So you get it's same temperature here as it is there, as it is over there. Whereas the furnace is just literally, and same with hot water baseboard for that matter. And the mini splits, the same thing. Super even, super consistent. Very, kind of, and the ETS that we were talking about earlier. I've been touting them for years and I knew that they worked. I just didn't have one in my house. I just put one in this year. It's like a wood stove, right? It's like sitting right beside a wood stove. Like that heat is just like this kind of raw, in your bones, meat and potatoes again, kind of heat. Really, really good heat. I really am a big fan. Yeah, I mean, Richard, if you're at this thing, you can give me a shout tomorrow. I'll come out and see you out your way, Chester Mahone Bay. Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much covered everything that I can think of anyways. I don't know if there's anything specific that any of you, or was there anything that I didn't answer? All right, well, very good. Well, thank you all for attending. We are going to be giving away a heat pump to one person that attends one of the 4 seminars. We had Monday or today. I'm next Tuesday. I'm next Thursday. And then after that, we will, I'll answer that last question there in a second. We will be giving away a heat pump probably the Monday after. We will probably, I think on the Friday of next week, we'll send you all a link. We have all of your names. It's only to the people who attended. So, we're averaging 10 to 20 people a session right now. So you got really good odds. But yeah, I mean, I hope you learned some stuff. I hope I was able to give you some information. If install a roof system, how much we need repaired? Really, so these attic ducted systems, we got them down to pretty much a science. It's very rarely that there is any work to be done afterwards. We've kind of got it where we can get up through the hole that we cut for the return. Those, I mean, even those, we have we've done them round so that we have the hole stop. So even when they cut the hole, there's a guy sitting underneath with a bucket so that we don't get dust everywhere. Sometimes some of the insulation, if you've had blown insulation, can get moved around a little bit. But we do our best to put that back. But they're pretty slick, man. I honestly think that, in my opinion, right, in a bedroom, unless you're, empty nesters, you don't have kids or anybody ever coming over to your house or anything like that, and it's just you and you and you, or you and your partner, whatever, this is a waste of time, right? If you're looking to do just a bedroom, right, just a bedroom, or doing even 2 bedrooms, a portable window shaker air conditioner is a better investment than one of these in a bedroom, as far as I'm concerned. You're better off saving up a little bit of money and going for the real deal, right? This is the, in my opinion, a 2-story house, bedrooms only solution, in my opinion, because again, from the heating perspective, and I know everybody talks about, oh yeah, I like the air conditioning. This is a heating system. It's not an air conditioning system. When you buy this and you put it on the main floor of your house, and you got a 2-story house, that is also basically going to heat the upstairs as well. So you don't need heat upstairs. Not really, just a little bit of top up maybe for super cold days, but it's just like, it's a minimum. It just goes up, right? The layout does matter, but 95% of the time, this is going to do every 2nd-story house, provided we've sized it properly and everything like that. So you're not buying it for heat. You're buying it for air conditioning, right? It's a $4,000 air conditioner, right? It's $4,000. It does 1 room, 100, 200 square feet max, right? That for an extra $3,000 gives you 4 rooms, right? 4 rooms of better quality air conditioning, the best quality of air conditioning, because this machine is sized properly for the space that we put it in. This machine, it's oversized. I can't buy a machine like this that is sized properly for a bedroom. I would need like a 2 or a 3,000 BTU unit. The smallest they come in is 7. So it's immediately right out of the box, twice as big as what it needs to be. Short cycling. It'll come on, it'll barf out all of its heat and its cool, or whatever it is that you're looking for at the time. Shuts off. Comes on, shuts off. Comes on, shuts off. What happens with that is the coil doesn't get enough air to go through it to really take the humidity out of the air, right? So what you end up getting is you end up getting a cold, damp room. And if you've ever been in a hotel in Florida or anywhere in the Caribbean, you'll know that at nighttime you can get the room cold, but you get like this dampness kind of all over your skin, right? Clammy. That's what's going to happen right here. That's what's going to happen. You get this, man. You go out to the drain line that's popping off all rooms on the top floor of a house. You could fill a pint glass probably every 20 to 25 minutes. It's huge, right? That's where the comfort is. The humidity coming out, that's where you get the comfort. Who cares if it's cold? You want that humidity out. That's what air conditioning is all about. Getting rid of that humidity that's going to make you all gamey and sticky. So anyways, that's my opinion anyways. And I think that's it. All right. That's great. Thank you very much, everybody. If you know anybody who's thinking about a heat pump, please tell them that we are doing the sessions again Tuesday and Thursday of next week. I am going to probably look at doing these more in the future as well. So anyways, thank you so much for coming, and hopefully we'll see you sometime soon. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.